Hello, everybody. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. It is so good to have you on tonight. We're not going to talk politics tonight. So for those of you who are non-political type people, you're going to love this show. For those of you who are political people, I think you'll still like this show. I don't get to do these as often as I'd like to, but we have a really cool story. It's one of those stories, and I don't mean this in necessarily a religious way, but like of redemption, of doing the right thing, of people who, have that come to Jesus moment and figure out in their life that, this isn't what I want. And, we talk a lot about addiction to drugs and alcohol and all those kind of things. And, what most people will tell you is it really has to be up to that person. And there's a lot of people on that road along the way, but they have to come to the decision that I don't want to live this way anymore. Nobody can force them. Nobody can make them. Although I have a friend that's a mutual friend of Bill's and mine, who says the best thing that ever happened to him was the last time he got put in jail, which was of 5 or 6 times, because he finally realized, I don't want to live my life like this anymore. So this will be and the cool thing about Bill's story too, is now he's one of the top people at one of Lane County's most respected organizations that does some amazing things for people that in some cases are like what he used to be. So it's a great story, and we're going to get to that. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Dental, caring and trusted, Dr. Michael Bratland. If you guys are looking for a dentist and you want somebody who believes in your right to speak and your right to say what you want and your civil liberties and all that kind of stuff, Bratland picks up a lot of patients because they like who he is and what he believes about them. And he's a good guy. And I encourage you, right now is a really good time to get an appointment, because once summer hits, they get really busy, and then the fall. So spring is a really good time to get in there and get your work done. So that's Dr. Michael Bratland, Chris Dental, right here in Eugene. So let's bring our guest on. And Bill Barnard, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I am great. So Bill and I have a mutual friend, Nick.
Right.
Both love this guy. And Nick told me about you. And then I said, yeah. It sounds like a great podcast. And you wrote me back. And so I just want you to really, I'm just going to ask you questions as you tell your story. But I want you to kind of start from the beginning of what was your life like as a kid?
So, born to parents on the run from the federal government. They were both fugitives of one kind or another. I was born in North Carolina. Mom went to federal prison. Dad's on the run. My grandparents came out and picked me up when I was 3 months old and adopted me. That was an interesting time. I was obviously super young and not aware of all the details, but it turned into being a pretty intensely abusive child sexual trauma kind of situation.
With your grandparents?
With my grandfather, yeah. Not something I get into a whole lot, but it's a piece of my story. And it's a piece of who I am now. And I use that, those hard fought kind of victories in my mind to motivate me to be who I am. So that was a rough time. I was with them till I was 16, and they passed away within about a year of each other.
Was that a relief?
I wish I could give you a simple answer there. Oddly enough, my grandmother was the closest thing I ever had in my life up to that point. She was my protector, my savior, my everything. Little 4'11" Sicilian lady that, what I mean? You just couldn't, you couldn't replicate if you had to.
So what was the difference? Like, what did she do for you that nobody else did for you?
She set out every day to protect me from everything that was wrong in my life, and whether or not she was always successful, that was her entire mission. I was surrounded my entire childhood by my immediate family of addicts, criminals, every varying factor of criminality and addiction you can imagine. And so she kind of created this bubble around me as best she could to keep me away from all that. And
so do you think she kind of saw who you really were and who you could be?
I want to believe that, you know what I mean? She's going to she'll always hold a super special place in my life. And she's been gone a long time now, but through the other parts of this story we'll cover, like there was definitely times where I went, you know what, like this is legitimately a moment my grandma would be proud of. And it was something that, at certain intervals in my life, I think about pretty frequently.
So when did you start getting into trouble, and what kind of trouble?
I think I was stealing computer parts from my neighbor when I was 10 or 11. To be honest, like some of my earliest memories. I grew up at like 13th and Lawrence in downtown Eugene, right by the fairgrounds. And I was stealing from him. And then it was any wallet I could find. And I mean, I progressed really quickly. I did my first shot of methamphetamine when I was 13. So I was on to the races pretty quickly.
What were you stealing for? Like, was it because you didn't have the money, or was it?
Not even. That's the crazy part. I could have gone to my grandmother. She would have handed me anything I ever asked for. It became it wasn't even about the survival piece. Even later in life, like where a lot of people will tell you, hey, I was stealing to get higher. I was stealing to do this. I did to a certain degree, but for me, it was the rush of that whole, kind of catch me if you can attitude, like I always had to get bigger and bigger and bigger and make more and more and more. And I could not, I had zero self-control in every respect. It was more the criminality than the addiction in the early parts.
So really, were you more addicted to criminality than you
Without
were?
a doubt.
Huh, isn't that interesting?
150%. Absolutely.
So it's what you could get. Do you think that's, I mean, a lot of people who've been in the same situation as you. Do you think that's more of an addiction that people don't think about, that or that is?
I think it's the criminality, the adrenaline, and I also think it's a lot less common than I hate to say average when we talk about the addiction space or when we talk about that, because everybody's factors are different, their stories are different and all that. But it's definitely less common. Generally, people are using criminality to support addiction, period, end all be all. And that's pretty much how it lives. I really wasn't in that space for most of my life.
So when did you start getting in trouble?
I think my first earliest stuff would have been some neighborhood cars that I did when I was 13, 14. I got some stolen cars from like right down the street that I would bring back and I'd take out and do stupid stuff in. I think I wrecked a couple of them at one point. I'm trying to think specifically what the earliest one. My very first major trouble was actually a story that you covered in your former life. It was a large $760,000 burglary from Autzen Stadium. Is it coming back to you now?
That was you.
That was me. Yeah. I manufactured an access card using my tech skills and my background, and I emptied the place out.
No, I remember that.
Yeah, a lot of people do. In fact, generally when my name comes up, they go, the Autzen thing? And it's like, great. I can't escape that to save my life, but yes.
So, and you were doing, when Bill, you guys have to know, when Bill wrote me, I thought it was kind of funny. He says, we don't really know each other. We have some mutual friends, but I heard you've said my name many times over the years on the news because I was the person that they were, or you would know that they were coming after you because of some story I was reporting on.
Yep.
So when did you, tell me about jail? I'm guessing you ended up in.
Yeah. So
what kind? Local jail, penitentiary?
So that time I got just under 6.5, 7 years in state prison. I was at Lane County Jail for a few months. I got sentenced. I went back and forth through the system, and to be super blunt, like the only thing I could think of the whole time during that time was that, damn, I screwed up. And I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it better next time because only stupid people get caught. Like I had no regard or care for the wrong I did at the time. It was all about how can I do this better next time?
Right.
What do I need to do to prevent being in this situation again? So I started at Lane County Jail. I went to Oregon State Penitentiary. I went to Snake River Correctional Institution. I think during that time period, I've hit 6 or 8 Oregon prisons, fought fires, helped build another prison. Like I did all kinds of lower security stuff after when I was getting short towards the end. But yeah, that was quite the adventure.
So how many years did all this go on?
For that particular sentence, or do you mean cumulatively?
Oh, for all your criminality. And
I have 17.5 years in prison at this moment.
17.5 years of your life in prison.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to you?
and I'm 40 for perspective. So I just turned 40. It does a lot of things. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of good things about life and people. I learned a lot of terrible things about life and people. I learned what happens in your own mind when you kind of start to wonder what's real and what's not. I did a lot of solitary confinement. I was fighting a lot when I was young. Couldn't just because you break the rules outside doesn't mean you're going to go to prison and all of a sudden you follow the rules, right? So more of the same continues. And I was fighting left and right. And I was in the whole solitary confinement. I mean, you spend months on months in those environments. Things really start to get away from you mentally. You know what I mean? You can, I don't care who you are. Like if you don't go in there with an ironclad mentality and an ironclad, awareness of yourself and what you are, it will tear you apart. Had some real dark times. That's for sure.
How did you, what was your darkest moment? Do you remember? What were you thinking?
When I got to intake is the Coffee Creek Correctional Facility up in Wilsonville. And this is during, I'm kind of putting in perspective here, but this is during that first sentence for the stadium. The very first time, because Lane County Jail, for those, I'm sure a lot of your listeners don't know, but like it's mostly like old school wooden doors, kind of like a commercial version of a hotel in a way. Like it's not real prison-y, if that makes sense. But when those steel electronically controlled doors at an actual prison kind of latch behind you, the doors are almost airtight. So when that slams in a really heavy way, the air kind of pops your ears, And I remember feeling like, wait a minute, what did I do? You know what I mean? And when am I going to come out of here next? Like, at that point, my dad was still alive, who was somebody that I was real close with. And I could have had a lot of things going, but I didn't care to. I was still too engaged in what I was doing to even give it a thought. But that was definitely my darkest moment during that time of my life, was that very first night, carrying a blanket under my arm, carrying a bologna sandwich that they gave me on the bus, and trying to figure out exactly how life was going to look and how life was going to feel to get through that sentence.
So at that point, how long did you were going to be in jail then?
6.5 years.
So you were looking at, I have to find a way to survive this for 6.5 years.
Right. I have to reimagine myself in whatever context this is to make this livable. Like I didn't have a clue where to begin.
So I have a friend who ended up in prison, and another friend, and he kind of figured out, kept his head low, and then started educating. Like he knew how to teach. And so he started educating people and getting them their GEDs. So it became all of a sudden, nobody touched him because he was helping people educate themselves. And so he found that way to survive, the 2.5 years he spent in prison.
It's all about a niche. Everybody's got to have a niche. I used to help with legal paperwork. I used to help making documents for people. I've done different certifications. There was one point I was teaching classes, but I wasn't really teaching. I just got a teaching gig, and then I would sell the certificates to them so people could get time off their sentences. I was still acting like a criminal inside. Like there was really no difference at that point. It was whatever you could do. You got to make yourself indispensable. You got to make yourself safe, and you're going to do whatever you got to do to make that happen.
So you ended up back in prison though. So you got out.
Yep.
And then what did you do?
I got out. At that point I had a son that I'd had right before I left. I was trying desperately to, get back in his life and figure out things with his mom. I wanted more than anything to learn to be a dad. And the short version is it just wasn't meant to be between her and I. And it kind of catapulted me into this thing where I was like, okay, well, I came out, I tried it the right way. I did everything I was supposed to do, and it ended horribly. Like her and I got a place, everything was going great. Like I was working, I started a little business doing some IT work here and there. I was making great money, and needless to say, it blew up with her and I. Caught her doing some stuff she shouldn't have. And I got a real bad case of well, here we go. And I tore everything apart faster than I built it. I mean, I went all the way left field. I started getting into firearms and guns. I mean, I've always been a gun guy my whole life, but I started selling weapons and possessing things I shouldn't have. And feds got involved. U.S. Marshals got involved. ATF got involved. I ended up on the run for several months from the street crimes unit here in Eugene, as well as the Marshals Task Force. Ended up on their list, their most wanted list for the West Coast. Things got really, really hot for me. And that's a whole, to put comparison, like, but if you're dealing with like the locals and all that,
Right.
like it's kind of a joke in comparison, like legally. These guys, it's a whole different monster. They start showing up at places you haven't lived in a decade with full tattoo sleeves and a beard. And they're like, hey, I owe this guy money. Could you get this to him? Do you have his number? I just owe this guy. Like they're a whole different breed of manhunter. You know what I mean? Like they really are. And long story short, I got scooped up and then I went into the federal system. And
where did you serve there?
I did that at the Victorville United States Penitentiary down in Southern California, the Atwater United States Penitentiary, which are both level 4 maximum federal facilities. Because of my age, my history, my previous prison sentence, they used that to enhance my score. And I did just over 10 in the federal system.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, if the state was a thing where it's like, okay, this is frustrating and whatever, it's stupid. The feds were like,
it's serious.
It's very serious, but the level of people that they take there, I mean, we're talking master white collar guys, extortionists, cartel bosses. I mean, like the people you meet in maximum security in the feds are wild. And if you're there to learn more bad, you absolutely can. And it's a breeding ground for it. I went in very quickly, and I was doing drugs up till 3 months into my sentence. In fact, the last time I used meth was 3 months into my federal sentence. And I kind of had this awakening. I hate to make it sound cliche like that, but I just had this moment where I felt like crap. And I was like, you know what? This isn't going to work for me. You know what I mean? Like this isn't what I meant to do. My grandma would not be into what I'm doing. And I think I can do something better. And so I ping-ponged through that system, highly violent, highly racially motivated yard politics and all that crazy stuff. Like it is not a place. I mean, to give you some comparison, the first place I went to, Victorville, there's 1,300 people there. I was the 40th white guy on the yard. And you want to talk about outnumbered and not feeling safe. Like you are a target strictly because of your skin color. I mean, inside it is the polar opposite of anything you can imagine. It's a terrible thing. People die there regularly.
How did you lay low? I mean, or did you?
You can't. So the short version is there's no laying low. There's earn your place, do what you have to do, and hope that your turn doesn't come up again. You know what I mean? There's no laying low. Those that are the quietest become targets. There's not a middle ground. There's not like, oh, I'll just hide out of the way. That's the worst thing you could possibly do in that environment. You don't want to do that.
So when did stuff turn around for you? Like what was the come to Jesus moment for you? I mean,
I started learning as much as I could. I started reading. I've always been a tech guy, by nature, by background. I haven't always used it for good, obviously, but I stayed really tuned in. I had some great support systems while I was in. Some friends I met on like some pen pal websites and things like that were great about sending me books and keeping me educated. Things really, really got intense for me like my last 18 months, maybe 2 years. I got to a medium security facility. Now, mind you, at that point, COVID hit, which if you think, not to go down the rabbit hole here, but if you think it's horrible, some of the lockdown stuff on the outside was bad. They showed up at midnight and slipped a piece of paper under our door that said 14 days to slow the spread and didn't let us out of the cell for 8.5 months.
No.
Yeah. If you think that civil liberties were an issue out here in the free world, they tried to forget about us. It was a nightmare.
So you were 14 days and you couldn't come out of your cell?
No. They told us it was going to be 14 days. They slipped this. I still have this memo. In fact, I kept it. It says, Director of Operations, Federal Bureau of Prisons, 14 days to slow the spread, intermediate lockdown. Nobody's coming out for 14 days. We're just going to test everybody. Everything will be fine. 8.5 months later, I came out of my cell.
Wait. So you were in a cell, Bill, for 8.5 months
with another person. We ate in there, used the restroom in there, bird bath, showered in there. I mean, yes, 100%. They did this to thousands of federal prisoners nationwide.
Oh my God.
There was no plan. There was no strategy. There was no contingency. They just locked us up.
Did you just get like stir crazy, like nothing?
That that's what I was kind of referencing earlier when I talked about just like the real darkness and really starting to become familiar in your mind with like, okay, I haven't been out of this 5x8 box in months. I don't know what's happening in the world. The last time I saw a newspaper, people were dying left and right. We were going on lockdown. Politics were crazy. The country was going crazy. You know what I mean? Like I had this much information, this much media, this much news, and all I had was to be locked in a box with another guy that was just as clueless as I was. He was the only person I could talk to for months on end. It was a lot of chaos. That time in my life really focused me on the fact that I never wanted to be in that situation again.
So do you think that's what was that?
I think it was an accumulation of factors. That definitely helped. But the fact that I was done giving up my time and, you know, as we call it inside, being on your back for a decade, I pretty much decided that even though it was a little later in life and I was starting out in a place where I was pretty disadvantaged from a time perspective, that I wasn't going to let that get a hold of me. I wasn't going to let that hold me down. That there had to be a way to make it. And, you know, you look around, there's people that are in worse situations than I am that are doing far better than I am today. You know what I mean? And I just figured I had to be one of those and I had to figure out how.
So what did you do?
So a few things. There was a woman I was really close with in my addiction when her and I were both addicts. She reached out to me out of nowhere a couple of months before I got out. Hadn't heard from her the entire time. And I was always absolutely obsessed with her. Spoiler alert, she's my wife now.
That was my next question. Did you marry this woman?
I did. Like less than a month and a half after I got out. I absolutely did. I went for it. Her and I don't have any self-control as well, which is why we are so great together. We went for it. I got out.
So what did she do? She was sending you, she
wrote me a letter. She's like, hey, I saw a friend post about you on Facebook and wondering how you're doing. And I heard you're getting out soon. And what are your plans? What are you going to do? Here's a picture. And I'm just like, it was like all of time just ceased to exist. She was doing great. She was clean and sober. At the time she was working in the salon. She's now in the drug and alcohol recovery field as well. Peer support field, which is amazing. But I knew the moment I got it, I was like, okay, well, that's absolutely the future. I'm going to be with her. Now I got to figure out the rest. So I go through 3 release dates getting canceled. And in case that sounds crazy to you, it's because it is. They can absolutely cancel your release date if they don't do the paperwork properly. During the COVID time, there was no staff. There was no people to do the things they were supposed to do in there because people just called into work. So they canceled my release date 3 times, which is a whole monster in itself. I finally get out. They drop me at the Fresno airport. I fly to Portland, which is one of the only left remaining halfway houses in Portland. By halfway house, it's like a transitional. You're not locked in here, but you're expected to get a job, but you have to come here and sleep. So I go there and I'm like, okay, I need a driver's license. I need ID. I need to figure all this stuff out. What do I got to do? I get that stuff on day 1. I get my first pass and I head out of the halfway house. I wasn't suspended, thankfully, so I got my license. I did some networking with some people I knew up there. Next thing I know, 48 hours after prison, I'm delivering Home Depot appliances for a third-party vendor, and I'm driving all over the state, which is wild because you're not supposed to go outside of 50 miles of the halfway house. But I'm like, it's work. Like, I'm going to go where the work tells me, right?
Right.
So I'm slinging refrigerators and dishwashers and built-in microwaves, and I've never delivered appliances before. I don't know anything about appliances, but damn it, I'm making it work, right?
Right. You're not the expert.
Yeah, all of a sudden I'm a ready to go expert. And then I got promoted to be a truck lead, and so I had my own crew. And then I'm training. I was there 6 months, which is the time that they mandated me to stay at the halfway house.
So wait, during that time, what did you learn about yourself?
I learned that I can do whatever. I learned that a new thing can be thrown at me that I have absolutely no idea about, and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do the best I can at it.
Did you always know you were smart?
I knew that I had some capabilities. I've always, people make comments like that a lot, and it always kind of makes me uncomfortable because I feel like there's some things that I'm absolutely not smart about because I have such a history of really stupid decisions in my life. But I definitely, on some things, have capabilities that some other people don't. So
when you look back at those stupid decisions, why do you think you were making them? Like, why do you think, what changed about all that? I'm thinking if there's a kid out there
There is. And
Or
I had another reason. I had a reason beyond myself for someone else I wanted to care for, and for all of a sudden, if it was just about me, I don't know what would necessarily happen during that time. But I also got tired of it. I got tired of people, being disappointed, and where's Bill? Of course, Bill's in prison. Like, oh, he's in prison again. Like it just got really old. And I also realized that I really like nice things, and I really like living a comfortable life, and concrete bed in a prison cell is not that.
Right.
It's just not.
How much did your wife play in all that?
Huge. Huge. She did it all before I did. You know what I mean? She got out of it. She got a career together, put herself through school, became a licensed hairstylist, right out of fresh recovery. It's wild. She played a huge part. She keeps me grounded more than anything. And I don't give her anywhere near enough credit, to be honest with you.
You just did.
Maybe not as often as I should.
Now, do you guys have kids?
Yeah, we got 3 stepkids. So her 2 sons and daughters. I'm sorry, 2 sons and daughter. 2 of which live with us now, and an oldest that lives up in Washington.
Now, are you connected with your son?
I was until just recently. He has decided he wants to make decisions that I can't support or be a part of, and he has to make his own mistakes. I've done my part. I did my due diligence to try and show him every horrible thing that can happen based on his choices. And he's going to have to learn the hard way, just like I did, unfortunately.
Is that hard for you?
It's insane. It's one of the worst things I've ever had to stomach, because I can literally look at every single action and go, okay, I get where you're coming from. I know what you stand to gain, and I know what you stand to lose. I've done every bit of it, more than you could ever imagine. This is what you're headed towards. And he will look me dead in my eyes and say, yeah, I know. And there's nothing I can do to fix it. It's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. He's in addiction. He's in crime. He's all of it. And I feel like that's the ultimate punishment for my old life, is that I have to watch him make these mistakes.
Yeah, but you got to go back too, Bill, to what you said, is we all get to make our own choices. And you are allowing him to make bad choices, which somebody allowed you to do the same thing, and you came around.
Right.
So if history does repeat itself, which is probably a hard part, your parents did this, you did this, thank God, God gave you a grandma like that, do you ever, I had a really good grandma too. And she was the one person in my life who saw me for who I was.
Agreed.
Not what I was going to be when I grew up, or saw some hopeful, oh, Rick will be on TV. None of that. She just, I was Ricky, and you were probably little Bill.
Right.
And you need somebody. And so when I was going through therapy, that was like one of the things the therapist asked me one time. It's like, who is your love? Who showed you unconditional love? Now that was her.
Right.
Even when I was a total fuck up.
Yeah. Same. Same. I mean, I started young, and she would defend me to the degrees that you can't even fathom with every other member of my family. And he's like, oh, he's fine. Always leave him alone, like all the time, like just viciously. And I tell you, she never, onto her deathbed, she never stopped.
Right. Do you think she'd be proud today?
Today, yeah. Yeah, I do. I do.
So tell people, okay, you drive trucks, you're delivering furniture, you're
there's an interesting transition here. Okay. So I'm driving a Home Depot truck. I put in my 2 weeks notice because my halfway house is what's called terminating. So it means I'm allowed to move home. My wife at the time lives down here. Now, mind you, I was in the halfway house. I got married. I did all this sort of stuff. I was supposed to be at work. Like I was not doing anything I was supposed to. I wasn't supposed to have a car. I had to hit next door. Like, they put so many barriers in your way to like keep you restricted, but I had to work. I had to save money. I had to have a vehicle. I wanted to get married. I did all of that. Like, to them, they still to this day tell people I was a model inmate at that halfway house because I got out of there so quick and did everything I was supposed to do. I didn't listen to anything they wanted me to do. That's kind of the irony, but I wasn't doing it for criminality. I think
you might be related, Bill. There could be, I don't know, I mean, much older brother or something,
right?
Or something, I don't know.
So I get out of there, I move home, and her and I have a a tiny little apartment, 2-bedroom apartment that she had before I'd gotten out, down in the Whitaker of Eugene. And right off the bat, I start applying for jobs, and I'm getting shot down left and right. Because at this point, I've got 31 felony convictions over the course of my lifetime, 1 federal and 30 state. And nobody's trying to give me the time of day. Anybody that does give me a job offer fires me before I can even make it into onboard, because the background check comes back in time.
Right.
And so I take the shotgun approach, which to me that's me on Indeed. And I'm copy and pasting my resume to every listing that I possibly can, hoping anything will catch. Because at this point, how am I supposed to support my family? How am I supposed to figure this out? Yeah. So I get this call from a tech broker in Florida, this crazy Ukrainian guy who I'll forever be indebted to. His name is Vitaly. And he says, "Hey, I have some work in Oregon. You want to do Walmarts?" And I'm like, "Walmarts?" Long story short, without going crazy in depth, I ended up doing all of the security systems and loss prevention systems for Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, US Bank, Wells Fargo, Costco, all these big box retailers from Yakima, Washington through Central California, east to Boise.
Wow.
And I had a crew of guys that were close to me, and my kids at some points, friends at some points, anybody I could find with a pulse that I could teach to do some stuff. We're pulling wires in Walmarts. We're hanging speakers, cameras, loss prevention systems, registers, data cable, you name it. We were doing it. And I was on the road 2/3 of the week. I made incredible money. I was working in air traffic control towers doing security assessments with a federal ankle monitor on. You know how hard that is to make up an excuse with TSA to get through security and not wanting the people that are paying you to work to look at your ankle? So I'm like, "Hey, I've got this expensive equipment. I can't leave it unattended, and it's too sensitive to go through the metal detectors. We need to bypass this." And she's like, "Oh yeah, not a problem, not a problem." All I could think about was the panic of trying to explain why I had a federal ankle monitor on in the middle of a federal contract.
Oh my God. Well,
So I'm doing all this wild work. I did security assessments. I used to respond to bank robberies to reset the panic alarms because we had to do these systems. And I was one of the few people certified to do them between here and Portland. So I did that for, I would say, about a year. Traveled all over the place, and it was absolutely amazing.
that was probably that's probably the adventure of your life.
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
We did Moss Adams accounting firm up in Portland, where we had to set up like 700 workstations in 2 weeks with 8 guys. Like, I made more money than I've ever seen in my lifetime that I didn't steal.
So in some way, was that, Bill, kind of like, redemption? Because you get to do you're working against the criminals now.
Right. Oh, it is. Oh,
so you're using all the skills you learned as a criminal.
You have no idea. So that only gets way worse with my current role. So
were there moments when you sat down and you kind of chuckled to yourself and goes, I got my schooling in the most interesting way.
Right. The big moment there was when I had my first interaction, not direct interaction, but when I first saw the very first person on camera footage that I knew in my personal life that was in the same life that I used to have, doing wrong against my current employer.
Oh.
That was the very moment I went,
what did you what was going through your head?
I was extremely uncomfortable. It killed me. And I had a real reckoning moment. I kind of talked to my wife about it, and I was like, this is who I am now. This company pays our bills. This company takes care of our family. This company's been incredibly decent to me when they didn't have to be. And at the end of the day, he's making a bad choice. So I often tell people, like, there's plenty of things out there you can do wrong. There's 100 places in the world that you could victimize or steal from, or this, that, and the other. And those are your business. You can take that up with the law. You're not going to do wrong to this company. They help too many people. They do too much. And I am this company. You know what I mean? I am a representative of this company. I love this company, and you're not going to do them wrong. I have this conversation with people that wrong us probably 7 times a week.
So Bill, did you even look at him and think, I could be looking at video footage of me?
Of myself. I think of that all the time.
And doing the same shit at this age.
Yep. Absolutely.
That has to be a moment when you kind of go, thank you, God.
Yeah. I've actually got one more for you. I'll continue the timeline.
I'll take it. It's a good
one. And it's definitely my full circle moment. So I do that for a little over a year. I ended up getting out of it. The travel was kind of killing me, but I didn't get out of it right away. I got a call one day, and things lined up so perfectly. I got a call from a recruiter in, I want to say Chicago. And she goes, "Hey, would you be interested in an IT director position at St. Vincent de Paul?" And I was like, I was, ignorant at the time. I was like, St. Vinny's, like, they need an IT director for some retail stores? Like, I was like, that doesn't sound like a pay bracket that I would be interested in. And she's like, "Listen, they do way more than that. You have no idea. Come on in for an interview." And I blew her call off for over a week. She called me again. She goes, "I saw your resume. Give these guys a chance." Just so happened that one of my out-of-town jobs had got canceled. I was like, I have nothing better to do. I'll go in for an interview and see what they're talking about. Why not? And I did. And when they were explaining to me all the things they're involved in, I was like, wait, what? How have I lived in this town my whole life? And I have no idea that all these homeless shelters, all these veteran services and housing programs and manufacturing facilities and mattress recycling and retail store. Like, I'm like, wait, what? So 3 interviews later, they offered me a position. I was in the purely IT director role for probably a little over 15, 16 months, and then switched over to the technology and security director role, which is where I kind of started going full circle, working with law enforcement really closely. Ironically, several of them that used to be on the task force with the marshals that used to look for me, and heard a lot of interesting stories about how close they'd gotten. So one calls me one day and he goes, "Hey, this is Detective so-and-so. I'm looking for video footage on this thing. We had a thing by your properties." I said, "Yeah, if you have the proper documentation, come in, we can go through it together and see if I can help." And he comes in my lobby and I'm standing there and it's not clicking. It's just not, the dots aren't connecting. And I was like, "Hey, how you been?" And my voice just lights him up and he goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I talked to you on the phone. I'm one of the directors here." And he's just mind blown. He's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I got that thumb drive. I got that footage you pulled. If you got your documentation, your subpoena, so I can turn it over to you, I've already got it taken care of for you." And he's like, "Do you have a minute? Could we talk? Like, how did you get, what's happening?" And we ended up kind of bullshitting and hanging out for a minute. And since that point, like, I work with them super close. We have all kinds of ongoing interactions based on different things. And it's maybe the most positive to see people that knew me the best in that negative light, because they were chasing me full time at different times in my life, to go, wow, like, this is amazing to see this. Because I'm coming out after hours. I work a lot at night. I work a lot after hours when things happen. I'm one of the first responders for the company that's there. And I'm involved, and they see me constantly. And it's like, I get compliments really regularly about it. And it's probably the most valuable piece that I latch onto today, is people that see me in a different light.
So what does that feel like?
It's validation beyond what you could possibly imagine. I have worked my ass off in this role, and I love it. But what they say, if you love what you do, it's not work. And sometimes, most of the time, even, I'll say, this doesn't feel like work. It doesn't. I mean, I've got my hands in so many different things, and I'm able to kind of leave my mark on things and make them right and make them perform better. And at the end of the day, that saves us money, and that allows us to do more for more people. So, like, I take an immense amount of pride in that. You know what I mean? And in that validation, making up, I feel like Vinny's, for me, allows me to give back for all the wrong I used to do and all the hurt that I've inflicted over the years. I don't have a direct method to reach out to every person I've ever wronged. I couldn't come up with that list if I had to, but I try to put back into the universe some kind of positivity and some kind of, redemption, if you will, towards making things right, being even with the house. That's the biggest thing I always think about, is just trying to even those scales.
So what is your official title at St. Vinny's?
Well, now, as of a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, I'm director of operations.
So that's like second in command?
I don't know if I go that far. Technically, I'm there's a piece of the company that I'm responsible for. I have all of our maintenance teams and staff. I have supportive housing, all of our veterans programs. I run the security department as well as IT. And then I'm also over our Egan Warming Center, which is our emergency response team function for, like, sub-zero temperatures to set up emergency shelter.
So you really are a part, even though you're not feet on the ground out there, you're providing, or are you?
Oh, the thing about this company is nobody is not feet on the ground. So last year for Egan, I mean, I volunteered in shelters. I helped set up shelters, help feed people. Today I was talking to a veteran that got his first keys to an apartment a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I'm absolutely on the ground. I mean, I'm in a leadership role, but nobody in our company has the luxury to sit behind a desk at our level. You're involved with clients every day. You're in the thick of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
So are you a rarity, or do you think that more people? I guess what I'm trying to get at, Bill, is what made the difference for you? Because I think there's a lot of people that'll end up watching this or are out there and struggling and going, yeah, but but you had everything except for your grandma going against you.
Right.
I mean, from the beginning, and you didn't become a victim.
I hate that word.
I do too.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. I despise every piece of it because I feel like, and please, if I get soapboxy here, please reach out.
Jump right on.
I despise that word for a lot of reasons because I feel like people are predisposed to jump on it and go, hey, blank happened to me, and this is how I have to live now because blank happened. Well, that's bullshit to me, and I'm not with it. I believe that every human being has the choice and the capacity to choose their path. That is not limited by an external factor. That is not something that, you can be forced to deal with. Oh, I can't get an education, because I'm broke, and I'm not even talking about an education like formal. Like I don't have a day of college. I don't have a degree. I don't have anything formal. I've got things I've pieced together from a lifetime that allow me to be good at what I do.
Right.
And I think the thing that separates maybe me and the type of person that makes up my personality type is that I refuse to be told no, just about in any context of my life. I'm going to make it happen. I refuse to have things not be an option. I'm not with it.
So Bill, the very thing that got you into trouble
exactly
is what is your secret sauce.
Yeah. I tell my boss that all the time. I was like, you understand, like, I still think and act like a criminal every day. I just don't act on it. Those are the same processes. My brain has not changed a bit.
But
it's
I don't even know if that's like a criminal.
Well,
you're kind of an outcast.
Right.
Like I think a lot of us are. And so you think yours just got channeled maybe in a poor direction.
Right.
But you're creative enough to come up with solutions like this. And now you're solutioning for people that actually really need it. It's not for you. It's not like a selfish thing. You're doing this for other people.
Right. It's unique in some respects. And sometimes I can't picture how people can't do it. Like I see these things and I go, wait, like what? Like I had somebody comment on a TikTok video not too recently. They're like, the old adage, must be nice. And, you got lucky. And I'm like, listen, I'm not going to say that there wasn't luck, but I never stopped. If the phone rang before when I worked for myself and there was a job overnight in Spokane or Boise or Reading, guess what? My ass was in the car and I was going to go do it. There was nothing that stopped me from going to work. I didn't care.
Do you think people give up too easily today?
Absolutely. The slightest bit of adversity blows my mind. And it's like, oh, well, no, that I can't do it, or no, that's not to be, or this can't happen, or this thing stopped me. I don't know what that's like because I'm not going to let anything stop me. I just don't care. I don't respect anything else enough to let it control my life. I don't understand it. I don't get that. There's a lot of quit, a lot of I can't.
When you lay in bed at night, and what are the things that, I'm going to give you both. What are the things that trouble you or keep you awake, or what are the things that help you sleep?
Ooh. The things that keep me up would be my son.
Yeah.
Figuring out what or how I could communicate to get through, even though I understand in my heart that, he's on a path and that path's going to end however he chooses. the thing that helps me sleep is that I totally don't want this to come off in a pompous way, but I try to make everything at least somewhat better that I touch or that I interact with, whether it's people, whether it's work, whether it's whatever. I try to leave some kind of positive impact. I believe that the people that I lead and the people that I've given opportunities to from various parts of life are in a better place because I gave them a chance. You know, one of the things I really hyper focused on at Vinny's is, you know, getting people with second chance employment history like mine, you know, the opportunity to earn their shot. You know, I often say to people, like, this is theirs to screw up. You know, we can afford to give them a chance. We can afford to see if it works out, because we've had some people that came from that life that work harder. We have so much more to prove. We have so much more to show, you know, because we've made all these mistakes and because we've done all these shitty things through life. You know what I mean? Myself included. And I'm really passionate about giving those people chances. And I've been really fortunate to have the latitude to do so. I'm actually going back to prison next month for the first time, which is super exciting. I'm going to go speak at a career day in the Oregon State Penitentiary, which I'm super stoked about.
What's the main thing you want to leave with those inmates?
That nothing is off the table.
Those people, excuse me.
That nothing is off the table. That anything you set out to do, whether it seems reasonable or not, is absolutely within your power. I own a home today. I have a beautiful family, an amazing wife, nice things, gorgeous hobbies, and vehicle. Like I would have never guessed I would be where I am today. And when I walked out of that door at Mendota Federal Correctional Institution, I would not for any possible way see where I am today, but I am. And anybody can do that. It's absolutely out there. If you don't stop, if you don't quit, if you refuse, I always like to say, if you don't show your belly, you know, and quit, you can just push and you'll get the things you want and you can get the life that you want.
But I think what's impressive about what you're talking about and about you is, I was listening to a podcast the other day and they said, you know, if you can get two things down, that's that God's in charge and that you serve people. You're here to serve people. Yeah. And you really do believe that service to people, because over all those years of you doing what you did, there's a bunch of people that served you.
Right. Right. And I was serving myself. And that's one of the things that we talk about all the time at work is, you know, the being of service and being, you know, servant leadership. And that's super critical. It defines who I am today. I mean, to be blunt, like it's, you know, nobody's in these roles. Nobody's working in the nonprofit space to get rich. Right. It's just the reality of it. Doing what I do would be twice as lucrative in the private space, but it would be soul crushing. You know what I mean? Just to be blunt, it would be absolutely soul crushing. This is medicine for wounded souls. This is the thing that, you know, helps me get through and helps me get square with the house.
What do you want people to remember about you? Not like you're going anywhere, but I always like to ask this question, because when I get an interview like you, because it's I think it makes you have to think profoundly a little bit.
Just that, regardless of, you know, what happens when you do a Google search or you look at all the headlines that, you know, folks have read or written over the years, there's a lot more story there and there's a lot yet to be written. I hope to add on to those Google search results in some really positive ways. And some of them are short term, some of them are longer term. You know, there's no telling what'll happen, but whatever those search results say today are not what they're going to say in the coming years. I'm gonna add on and leave a legacy that people can actually lean on and talk about and be proud of.
I love that. I think I have a friend who's, you know, his name, you know, he tries to get a house, tries to get a place to live. People Google his name. And even though, you know, the whole case got thrown out of courts and he shouldn't have served time, that's still there. So he had to change his name.
Right.
And so I love the way you're saying that, is it because I'm a true believer, Bill, that we write our own story. I think God is the co-author and he's kind of like an executive producer. So right. He sets up this stuff and says, okay, Bill can make it through this. And here's this other stuff. Not like he's saying, I want your grandfather to do this. And, not that kind of stuff. But here stuff happens and he knows you're going to get through that. But what kind of adventurous story? So you just got your adventure off wrong in the early part of your life. And now
Right.
it comes back and you're going, oh my gosh, I get a second chance using the same skills, but using them for good. And I get to be a little teeny bit devious about it. Like when you were getting to St. Vinny's, I'm talking pre St. Vinny's, but
Right.
I'm going to find these ways to do this. And you still got to be you.
Right.
You got to be this kind of the new, improved you.
Yeah, there was always these, when I first, there was always these roadblocks that like weren't based in like
It's ridiculous.
any logical thought. I'm like,
go get a job, but you have to put felon on everything. Well,
Right.
And most people see felon and they think, oh, he killed somebody. I mean,
Right.
it's like, I have 3 friends and they're all in the same boat. And it's like, yeah, here, let me tie your hands behind your back. And now you go out in the public and get a job,
Right. Best of luck.
Yeah. Best of luck. It's
Yeah.
like that. Okay. So last thing I want you to answer for me. So what was your grandma's name?
Marianne.
Marianne. So I want you to, if you could do this for me, what would you say if Marianne were sitting here today with you and me? What would you say to her? I would really be interested in hearing that.
I would say thank you. I know that she did absolutely everything she possibly could for me without question. And I have no blame or guilt in my heart whatsoever for the things that she couldn't stop. And I would say that I hope that I could be legitimately the first person from my family that you can actually be proud of, and that I'm not a shitbag anymore. That would mean the world, because she was always, she's a Catholic and super, big on, hiding people in the family that were addicts, hiding people that were criminals, and the guilt of all of that. Like, I would want her to be proud. I would want her to be accepting of who I am and how I treat my family and how I treat my kids and the people I help. And I would just want her to see all of it. I really would.
And you could say you did it.
Right.
You saved me.
Right. Without a doubt.
Or you taught me how to save myself, maybe.
For sure. Every bit of that. I learned things from that woman that I never even realized until so much later in life. It's wild.
It's all the little things that they say. You know what I mean? That's that kind of stick in there.
Right.
And I even get that from my mom. My mom would just look at me and go, honey, it's better than a poke in the butt with a cold carrot. And
right. Yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
Excuse me?
It's better than a turd in a lunch pail. And I'm going, Mom, what does that mean? She goes, if I put a turd in your lunch pail and you opened up, that'd be a bad day. I'm going, well, yeah, but so one day I said that in the newsroom in front of all the people in the newsroom. And I said, oh, shut up. It's better than a turd in a lunch pail. And they went, what does that mean?
Like, no deep meaning. It's exactly as it sounds.
Anymore when I said that my mom told me that, then they're like, oh my God, no wonder Rick's the way he is. I really like your spirit and your soul and who you are. I mean, and that I don't think that changes. You know what I mean? That's probably always been there. You just found a way to get to it. You know what I mean? And I think I'm so glad you're in our community. And I'm so glad that you came on here and talked to people, because I know people have been commenting, and I think that people can see this and realize that, and it's not just people who've ended up in prison, because there's a lot of prisons. There's some that are with doors, and then there's some that people make for themselves, and then there's some that people's parents make for themselves. We all have prisons that we can either go in, or we can step outside the door and do something different. And your plan and the conversation you and I just had, that is a plan. That is not a federal or state prison. That is every kind of prison that people can get out of. And we all have to get to the place where we want to do that.
Without a doubt.
And you did. And you're willing to share it, which I think is super important. And I am so thankful.
I don't ever want people to not think that they can do this, or not think that they can have that hope. You know what I mean? That's critical to me.
And I also have to throw out a big kudo to St. Vincent de Paul, because you always had a high standard. I mean, I had a high level of love for that agency, but knowing that they're willing to do the things that they've done with you, that just makes it that much more respectable because
They rolled the dice in a big way. I'm going to be honest. You know,
right.
like they really did, and I could not be more thankful. I have the best leadership and the best boss. She's had faith in me from day one, and it's been really amazing, inspiring.
Bill, thanks again for coming on. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Rick. This invite and this whole thing was a big deal. I thank you so much.
You know what I'm so happy about too on my end? Now I get to say your name.
Right.
It's not connected with
right. This was a full circle moment for me.
Full circle for you and me. We both got to come full circle here.
Absolutely.
Bill, thanks again. Oh, wait,
Thanks.
tell real fast. Tell people how they can find you on TikTok.
At bbernard065, BBARNARD065.
Okay. And so you guys can go on TikTok and find him. And if you have any questions or that kind of stuff, you can also write your questions in here and Bill can come back. We got a bunch of people writing a big, long stuff, but Bill, you can go back and read that.
Yeah, I'll definitely respond to everybody. I'll definitely go through and shoot some comments.
And put your comment in there. Tell them how to get a hold of you. You know what I mean? In terms of on the public sites that you want to see. All right. Sure. Bill, thank you again. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I appreciate it.
See you, buddy. All right. So there you go. Yeah, no excuses. I see a lot of you on here. Excellent interview. Great story. Great story. Yeah. You know, and here's the thing, not to diminish anything that Bill just said. There's a ton of stories that are like Bill's. There's a lot of people out there, you guys, who spent time in prison, who have the word felon, the F word, attached to their name. I've got at least 5 friends, and some of them very dear friends, who have that F in front of their names. I have friends who have the term sex offender in front of their names, but they never offended anybody sexually. It's because they had a felony and they peed outside, or they may have pooped on a police car. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. And that makes it a sex offender. So everything you see or read about people is not necessarily their story. And like Bill said, there's a whole backstory. And the bottom line is, these are people created by God and loved by him just as much as he loves you and me. So don't forget that. Please share this on your page. I know some of you hear me say that and you just go, oh, okay, whatever. Share it on your page so that other people can take a look at this. Or if you know somebody who's struggling right now, share this on their page. Let them know. And you don't have to say anything. Don't be preachy or, give them some lecture. Just say, I saw this and thought of you, and then post it. Okay. Wow. That was a fun interview. Yeah, I thank you guys. I will not be putting out a new podcast next week because I'm actually going up I found a story that I'm being paid to produce. It's about students in Skamania County, and they every year for the last 20 years, they've gone on this Lewis and Clark adventure, and they kayak 80 miles from their home down to Astoria, and the things that they learn, and you're going to love it. It's a great story about kids, about strength, about doing things that are hard and difficult. And you're going to absolutely love it. So I'm going next week. Kathy and I are going up there to go shoot that. And then it'll be out sometime this summer. All right. So but I'll still be posting the rest of this week and causing problems and making people angry. And some of you giving you a voice. I'm Rick Dancer. This is Get Real with Rick Dancer. Thank you for being with us. And Bill, again, thank you. And Nick, love you. Thanks for hooking me up with Bill so we knew what this was going to be about. I'll see you later.